Okay, so next steps for this PSA project is to take our top #1 photograph that we love and bring it into InDesign, and then we need to add our text. It's actually pretty simple, but there's a couple of little things that we're probably going to have to do that are a little new. So I'm going to go through the process and kind of show you what our next few steps are. So the first thing is, just like before when we moved into InDesign, InDesign does not like camera raw files, so we need to save this out as a Photoshop. So I just got this one image in here. You obviously have a lot more than that, but that's okay. So we're just going to open in camera raw, and I'm going to go down to the Save Image button. I'm going to click the Save Image button, and I'm just going to say same folder, and I'm going to change that from a DNG, which is a digital negative. I'm going to change that into a Photoshop document. There we go, nice and simple, and save. Now, just one image, shouldn't take too long. It's telling me down here, one remaining, and then it should be finished pretty quickly. Although this is a really large image. There it is. Okay, so then I can just click done. And so now you go back into the bridge, and you see I've got a CR2 and a Photoshop, the exact same thing. So now we're just going to I'm not going to open it, actually. We're going to go back into InDesign, and we're going to make ourselves a new document. And said new document needs to be a tabloid, just like before. Okay, so we're going to do a nice 11 by 17. Okay, and the orientation is up to you. In this case, I want a vertical. You can go horizontal. It really doesn't matter. And I'm not going to worry about any margins on this. So I'm just going to type 0 in there, and that's going to all zero it out. Also remember, if you're typing stuff in and you want something specific, like 0.25 inches for margin, remember to always put the IN afterwards, and it will convert it from inches to picas for you, just like that. But 0 is good for me. We're only going to do one page, so we don't need facing pages on. We're all good, so click OK. It's going to take a second here, but it's going to load up our document, and voila, there we go. So now we've got ourselves an empty document. We need to bring in our photograph. So just like before, we're going to hit place. Okay, and I'm just going to draw a frame first. Something about there, because I'm thinking I'm going to have the bottom down. I mean, again, the design doesn't necessarily matter. You can do a lot of what you want to do. So then I'm going to make sure my frame is selected. I'm going to go File and Place. And I'm going to go back to that folder, and I have it on the desktop. You'll have it in your Media Students, and you'll notice the PSD file is the one that you can actually place. And boom, there it goes. And remember, again, very similar. You can click in the middle. You guys are experts at this now, right? And I can shrink it down and so on and so forth. Now, you may run into problems. I mean, this is my biggest problem here is in a vertical. My image is actually ending a lot sooner than I was expecting it to, but if I make it big enough to go in there, it's not really matching up. So I'm going to have to do some creative problem solving here to do this, and I like this photograph, and I kind of want to keep it. So what I might actually do here is do 2 separate photographs to get me most of my size. So watch this. If I just go out of here, and I'm just going to drag this over. Notice it'll snap to the middle for me. Okay, there we go. Now I can just move that like that. Just kind of snug it in like that. Okay. And I might have to scale it down a little bit. Well, I'm not happy about that, but we'll see. Yeah, so now the ends get in there just where I want it to be. Okay. Now I've obviously got to figure this out, but there we go. So now I've got that, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Option drag. Now I've got 2 of the same ones, and now I'm just going to shift this over, and I've kind of condensed my photograph. I've actually made them look like they're closer together than they really are, and in doing so you can see like the shadows aren't matching up and stuff like that. So one of the things I'm going to need to do here is, and I did this in the original ad that I have on my website, is I actually drew a line down the middle. So anyway, so we've got that. Now one of the things that I really think is important about InDesign is InDesign has layers just like Photoshop. And I've found that most of the time, and there's a few designs where this isn't the case, but most of the time these layers are actually very helpful when you separate your text from your images. Now, not always, but you can also drag and drop things in between layers. So I can open the layer up here, and you can see that it's got two. It says that there's two of the same photograph in here, so that's kind of nice. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to call that photos. Okay, there we go. And now I've got, and you can see all the layers there. I'm going to make another layer here. We'll call this one text. Done. Okay. And I'll make one more, and we're going to call it background, because I want a background color in here. My photograph isn't quite working to fill the space, and that may be the case for you. And then the other nice thing is what I can do right here is I can lock said background or said layer so that I'm not going to mess anything up. So now I've got this. This is started. And what I can do is I can set up my background. So here I've got my background, and I'm just going to make a solid colored rectangle here. So with the rectangle tool, and we're just going to go out a little bit bigger actually than the actual page. When you're actually designing something for print, it's actually a really good habit to get into, because there's something called bleed, which means that you always want to give a little extra because of the fact that the printer might shift side to side or up and down a little bit. And if your box is exactly the same size and the printer does shift, you'll actually see the paper color because it didn't have anything to print there. So what we're going to do, oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to just say no stroke on the box there, and I'm going to open up the fill color, and you know, again, I'm just going to choose a color here. The coffee is Uganda gold, and they have like an orangey, sunsetty color in there. So, and I know this is off a little bit, but there we go. So now we're good to go. We've got a little bit of a head start. So now we're ready to do some text. Okay, so I'm gonna lock the background for the time being and click on my text layer. Now adding text is actually really simple in InDesign. It's just that there are a lot of options. So you're just going to grab the text tool, and you can do this in any number of ways. You can just click and drag and make a text box. You could also make a box with one of the rectangle frame tool, okay, and it does the same thing. And now you can start typing, and you see it's really tiny, okay? It's so tiny it's not even registering on the monitor. And we can highlight it all. And then up here, now that you're on the text tool, you see there's a whole ton of options for your fonts and also for paragraph stuff. Indents, and I mean, it's really impressive. This is where this program really shines, is text. So obviously I'm going to pump up the font size here so we can read it. You know, you can click there, or you can highlight here, or you can go in and type in an oddball size like 37, or you can even do halvesies, 37.5. Woohoo! I mean, it's really, really impressive. You can also change your fonts here. Okay, you just got a ton of fonts that you can choose from. There are also fonts that you can download for free off of the web, and I'm not going to say that you can't do that. And you know, that's up to you. I'll show you guys how to install fonts in another demo. There's also all sorts of other options here. You can increase the line spacing here, so you can see this guy here is line spacing, so it's the space from the top line to the second line. And here you have metrics between letters specifically, and you can like stretch them out. So like, let's just go to here, and I can start boosting it, and so you can see the text is now spreading out down here. I can, you know, you can also go the other way, and you can go minus, and then the letters kind of all start looking jumbled together, you know, and actually can like really just land on top of each other. But that's nice for a title, you know, stretch them out a little bit, bold the letters, stretch them out, center them. So here's your aligning things. You can center. You know, if you want to make things bold, you'll notice it really isn't a bold thing, and yeah, that sort of stuff, and italics. That's because they're right here underneath the font, and some fonts actually don't have a bolded version. And if that's the case, then we can change the thickness and fill and add a stroke or whatever. Also, some fonts don't have an italics, and so you can also literally change the degree of the angles very specifically here by just going 10 degrees. Cool. And you see how they slant just a little bit. You know, here, let's go down here. Oh, nuts. I lost it because I hit the space bar. Okay, so you can notice I can go in here and hit 20 degrees, and then they're slanting even more, and 30 degrees, and they're slanting even more, and so on and so forth. So you can control, you know, the italics to a very, very specific level. That's really kind of cool. And that's basic texting. That's basic text control in InDesign. And you do have all the things like justifying and centering and all that other stuff. Now, you can also do some fancy stuff. It's kind of cool. I did it again. Okay, so grab the move tool here. One of the other things, you can move them up. You can see how text will lay right over top of a photograph. You can do all sorts of things. One of the other things you can do, it's kind of neat, is you can draw a shape. So let's just make like a circle. Now this is, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's not really good. But I'm drawing a circle. I'm holding Shift key and Option. The Option allows it to drag from the center out. See how it's dragging from the left there? But when I hold the Shift key down, it's dragging from the center out. And the Option key, I'm sorry. The Option key drags from the center out. And the Shift key keeps me from making an oval. Okay, it makes a perfect circle. So now I made a perfect circle. There we go. That's kind of cool. And what's neat is, you know, that's invisible. You see it there, but if I were to go and say extras, and I can hide frame edges, you see that, there's really nothing there. In fact, if I click off of it, you can't see anything. Show frame edges. Now, underneath the text tool, there's also this really cool thing called Type on a Path tool. So I've got this circle here. If I click, notice how I've got the cursor over here. See, it's got a little plus on it. If I click, that allows me to type around the circle. Isn't that cool? It also allows you to control it really specifically. So if I go to the white arrow tool here, which is our direct selection tool, you notice I get a whole bunch of other options. One is I can shift where they start from. See that? And you can see how it's kind of changing the cursor. See that? It's got a little arrow thing, and I can change that. I can also change the ending here. Whoops. No. Undo. Right there. Okay, I can change that. And then down here, you'll see this is the center line. So I can change the center line of them. And then I can also drag it to the inside of the circle like this. And now the text goes on the inside of the circle. It's so cool and so powerful with what you can do with this thing. So I'm going to just bring that all the way to the end, and now I can shift them like this so they're directly in the center. It is really awesome what you can do with this Type on Path tool. So there I can have a circle, and you can copy and paste circles for lots of different reasons. Let's say you wanted text to go the other way, or whatever. You can get really creative with it. It's really cool. But let's say you didn't want to do something that was so even, like a circle. You wanted to make your own squiggly road type text or whatever. So let me grab the selection tool. I'm just going to hit the delete key. There it goes. Bye-bye. So one of the things that you can also do, and this might be familiar to some of you and very foreign to others, is you can draw your own path. And a path is basically a line. It's a distance between points. So I've got this point controller here. And I can click, and you see it draws a path. Isn't that cool? Okay. Now I can go to my, and right now it's got a stroke on it, so this actually is a line. Okay. I can go down here to the stroke, click on the stroke once, and then go here and say none, no thank you. Now the line's invisible. Okay. Now we can still click on it. Okay. Well, theoretically. There it is, okay? Not sure why it's not showing. Extras, show. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. I know it's there. So what you can do is we can do the text on a type path here. Now, I'm just going to kind of blindly go in here until I see the plus. And there we go, and I can click. And now you can kind of see I can type on a path. And you can see it kind of do its thing. Okay, I'm just typing gobbledygook, but I want to show you something. This is really cool. So now, okay, now it's telling me I went past the edge. Okay, so there we go. Now, okay, it's great, Mr. Weisbrod, but, you know, it looks, well, number one, it looks kind of ugly, which I kind of agree with, okay? Number two, I don't like angles and stuff like that. Well, we can go and we can change this, and here's the cool thing. So, using our white selection tool, I can go in here and I can grab an individual point. Okay, let me try that again. I can go in here and I can grab an individual point, okay? And you see as I stretch it, notice how the text reflows, which is really cool. The other thing that you can do is you can add or delete points. So right under our point thing here, our pen tool, there are a whole bunch of other tools that we can get to. So I can add a point. Let's go here. I can just add a point. There we go. And now I can drag that point around. You know, I can kind of play with it. The other thing I can do is I can delete a point. So go over here. And let's delete the point that I just got. So snap. Goodbye. Okay? And lastly, and my favorite, is we can convert a point. There are three types of points. There are corner points, and there are even curve points, and then there are corner points with a curve. So watch. I can go in here with the convert tool, and I can stretch it out. Now these little handles that you get, they're called Bezier it's Bezier curve, so they're handles for a Bezier curve, and now I can make this all nice and smooth. Okay. Looky there. Now you might say, okay, that's great, but I want a corner right here. I want it to go backwards into a corner. Okay, fine. So if I click and select that, now notice before I go there, actually notice you can also, as you change the handles, you'll notice that it changes the angle of the curve. Stretch it out longer and the curve gets longer. Bring in the angle and the curve gets flatter. Bring it in here and the curve coming into the point gets a little shorter and sharper. And also, as I drag one handle, you'll notice that the other handle on the other side of this curve changes. Well, if you don't want that, we go back to our convert point tool, and instead of grabbing the point this time, we can grab the handle. And if I grab the handle and I break it away, now these two handles aren't connected anymore, and they will make a point. Now, I can't, if I go back and click on this again with the convert point tool, all of a sudden it snaps back to a regular point tool. Okay? So what you got to do is once you're ready, if you've got that, you need to hit the A key or go back up here and get our direct selection tool. Okay? And now you can manipulate those handles very specifically, and you'll see how well InDesign does in reflowing the text just to kind of make whatever you were playing with here, make it happen in a way that it can, you know. And so now I've got this cool shape with text just riding right along it. And if you want an underline, you know, you can either underline the text or you could go back to the stroke menu here, click there and click and hold and set a stroke on it. And let's go there, and you can see now how that looks with this line underneath it. I'm not such a fan, but that's okay. Let's turn that off. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that you can do. Now, so one big question might be, okay, Mr. Weisbrod, I want my text around the box here with it, but you told me to lock the layer. Yes, I have. What I recommend doing, if that's what you really want to do, this is just me. Some people would probably really disagree with this. I'm going to go back into my photos layer. I'm going to highlight both of these. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to lock the layer. I'm going to click back on the text layer, and I'm going to go paste in place. Now I've got these two texts, and they've got the photographs in them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and click in the center. You see that? Click in the center. I'm just going to remove my photograph from that box. And now what I have is I have an empty rectangle, okay, that I can then put my text around, and it's a copy of the photograph box, so it's exactly the same size, but I can also control my text and keep my photographs separate and everything like that. Now that's just me. I like working that way. You know, some people would probably think I was really crazy to do that, but I really do like to work that way, and just keep my text and my backgrounds and my photographs all in separate layers. There have been designs where I needed to have them on the same layer, and then I can literally just drag them from one to the next. If you just open up the layers menu here, you can do that. So it doesn't really matter. But that's the basics of putting this together, and it's also the basics of starting to put text on photographs. Now, one of the things that I also want to say is use your space wisely. Right now, this is a rather awkward design. I've got a lot of empty space at the bottom and a weird kind of odd space at the top. I would need to kind of deal with that, whether I put a title across here or I put my facts here, for the PSA, my statistics, or whatever you need to do. Whatever I decide to do here, I need to fill that in somehow because it's really awkward space, and it just looks odd. So we wanna be careful with that. Okay, I mean that sort of stuff can be really very important. You're designing a whole package here, so you can have amazing photographs, but if the text and the font, or what we call the typography, if the typography of your PSA stinks, then it's going to really drag your photographs down, and the whole thing will look pretty bad. Regardless of how great your photographs are, you can really make it pretty horrible. Once you're starting to design it, one of the other things you can do, just to kind of show you one last thing, is down here you can change the view from normal to preview. Okay, let's just see what it does. And you notice it gets rid of all my edges of my photographs and all the frame guides and everything like that, and shows me what the thing would look like basically if I were to print it out, which is really kind of nice, so that you can gauge how you're doing and get a good sense of what's going on. So as I'm looking at this right here, that needs to be fixed. This transition here, and as I said, I was going to put a black line between the two to kind of allow it division. That's what I did in the original ad. I'm not sure if I really like it or not. I could also try and go into Photoshop and bring them closer together and blend this a little bit better in Photoshop, and then bring in that image all by itself. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but you're going to be solving a lot of design problems as you're doing this. I hope this all makes sense. But basically, that's text in InDesign really fast. There's a lot of resources on the web if you need to. Just a quick review. Separate layers for everything. Okay. Text box. Just make a regular frame to put text in. If you want to do fancy stuff, you can type path on it. Put text on a path or around the box or around a circle. Any shape that you want to draw, you can put the text on there. And then with the pen tool and the tools that are underneath it, the delete and the add anchor point tools and the convert point tool there, you can make your own fancy stuff too. Don't go too crazy with it, okay? It's simple, direct, and to the point. It's PSAs are all about simple and direct, but that should get you going. And hopefully, last thing is, don't forget to save. File, save as. I'm just going to put it right back in that same folder, and I'm going to call it PSA design1.InDesign, and done. And I probably should have done that a long time ago. Always save. As soon as you start adding stuff, you should save. Every time you add a photograph, save. And if you do your job and keep everything in separate layers, you never have to worry about making a mistake that's permanent that you really can't undo. And like I said, even in layers, you can go through and drag and drop stuff. So it's really pretty hard to make a change in InDesign that's permanent. That'll mess you up permanently. Makes sense. Okay, so hopefully this will be easy peasy for you.